Life and Upgrade. I'm Sahitya.
I'm Swetha.
And today we are talking about adulting, how it keeps evolving, and the new muscles we've had to grow.
Once upon a time, freedom meant a cute apartment, big dreams. Then we moved to the US. Earning start చేసాం ఓకే ఇంకా ఫ్రీడమ్ పెరుగుతుంది అనుకున్నాం దెన్ వీ గాట్ మ్యారీడ్ అప్పుడు అనుకున్నాం అమ్మయ్య వీ హ్యావ్ ఫ్రీడమ్ టు డూ లాట్ మోర్ థింగ్స్ అనుకున్నాం అండ్ దెన్ కిడ్స్ అండ్ ఫ్రీడమ్ స్టార్టెడ్ లుకింగ్ అ లాట్ మోర్ ప్లాన్డ్ యాక్టివిటీస్
Yeah, totally. నాకైతే అలాగా మెమరీస్ గుర్తొస్తున్నాయి శ్వేత. At some point, we stopped asking our parents, hey, what should we do next? And we started deciding for ourselves what we should be doing about our lives, our families, and our decisions.
I know that shift from outsourcing decisions to owning them, right? It actually ties back to some of our previous episodes where we spoke about responsibility, taking accountability, ownership. Are we just work concepts? Kaad, they are also a part of your outside work life too, right? And this episode, we want to walk you through three arenas where adulting leveled up for us: the US medical system, managing our household, and of course, work.
True that. So, first నువ్వు చెప్పినట్టు US medical system తో స్టార్ట్ చేద్దాం శ్వేత, because that has always been our big boss.
True that. Yeah, I'll kick off. I'll kick it off for various reasons. I feel that I'm so much more experienced in that area. But anyway, so when I got here, 13, 14 years back, even the idea of medical insurance was new. Back home, if anything was wrong, my dad would call a doctor friend or a doctor relative, and there was no doctor network where we would decide whether we should call this doctor or that doctor. Boom, I would have an appointment in the next hour, and then I was already seeing the doctor. But here, it's almost like a gaming tutorial. First, get your insurance, then get your PCP. For a very long time after came to the US, people used to ask me, do you have a PCP? And I was like, what is this PCP? And then finally I realized it's the primary care provider, your bridge into the system. Without one, even finding a specialist is like trying to skip levels without a key, right? And then annual checkups were also a cultural shock because growing up, I don't remember whether you and I had any annual checkups. ఏమన్నా మనకు ఒంట్లో బాగోపోతే పేరెంట్స్ అప్పుడు డాక్టర్ తీసుకెళ్ళడం, లేకపోతే మనకి ఏమన్నా బాగోపోతే మనం డాక్టర్ దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళడం తప్పించి there was no this routine, which kind of I appreciate now, but it was definitely a culture shock when I came here. And one other thing in the medical field I felt like was very different was there was no empathy. Like, after my first surgery, I remember the doctor literally walks in and just gives me a narrative. Oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this, you have to do that. There's no like, hi, how are you feeling? Idanta లేదు. But back home, if you have to go through even a small procedure, right, you would have a village supporting you. The doctors are very empathetic. The nurses, they pour their heart out. And these things I felt like, are huge culture shift for me when I started experiencing the medical system here.
Oh, I remember this so well, Shweta. Like when I went to get my first blood draw, right, ఇక్కడ US లో, it's like they just pulled my sleeve up. They said, hey, hold your arm like this. The nurse came up with the big needle, no warning, and just done. Right. And I was like, oh my God. ఎందుకంటే నాకు ఇండియాలో బ్యాక్ హోమ్ మై మెమరీ ఇస్ ఆల్ అబౌట్ పీపుల్ బీయింగ్ సో జెంటల్ చాటీ అదంతా. ఇక్కడ నథింగ్. అఫ్ కోర్స్ ఇట్ వాస్ వెరీ ఎఫిషియంట్, in and out in less than like 10 minutes, but not even remotely cozy, right? Can you what I felt telsa, like you have a lot of agency here. Okasari, I remember I had this intense stomach pain, right? And I immediately had to get to the urgent care. And the doctor, they checked me and they did some tests and they said, hey, we need to do like an emergency surgery on you. Are you okay with that? Like you need to sign these consent forms. So I had to say yes. I was totally in pain. And I did not even have the time to like phone my parents and ask all of that. And that's when I realized, like, hey, this is adulting. You have to give the final consent. It's your word.
Yes, I remember this incident so vividly because I think that was right after I got married. And I get this call that, hey, she's in the hospital. And I'm like, I had to book the next immediate flight, and I was there by the time you got out of the hospital, and one of our friends picked you up, and I came to their house. So, yes, that was my first experience with an emergency situation too in the US.
యా నాకెందుకు గుర్తుందంటే you were the one who actually told me, hey, Sahitya, ఈ surgery లాగింది, but so you need to ask all of these follow-up questions and these are the things. So appudu I prepared that list to ask all of the questions in the next appointments, like why did this happen, what should I do, all of this, because you are now an adult, you are responsible for your own health. Whereas in India, you would leave your family to deal with all of that and you are not worried. Can you hear? You have to take care of yourself.
Exactly. And which is why we build like a mini process almost, right? We first confirm. We confirm whether we have an insurance active, we have our PCP, we have the referrals in place, the appointments are booked. And then we prep. We write down questions, we put down all the history, all the logistics are planned, like, especially when it's around children, right? You have to make sure that your appointments happen when they are at school, things like that, coordinating all that schedule. And finally, you have to show up calm, you have to ask the questions, you have to ensure that, after visit, whatever follow-ups are there, you have to take care of them. Again, tying it back to the accountability and planning and responsibility that we started off with, I feel around the medical system here, you have to be very diligent.
నాకు నువ్వు ఆ 3-step ప్రాసెస్ చెప్పింది చాలా నచ్చింది శ్వేత, లైక్ ద కన్ఫర్మ్, ప్రెప్ అండ్ రిసీవ్. And the other thing you called out, once you have children, for me, motherhood puts all of this medical system, it just dials it up to another level, because you're not just managing your own health, you're also responsible for this tiny human being's health, right? And అప్పుడు kid వచ్చాక it made me appreciate the structure. Even if it feels very clinical, it is so necessary. And also, for me, having that preventive rhythms, making sure you schedule your annual physical, making sure you get your blood work done, making sure to get your dental checkups, your cleanups done, getting your vaccines done. So it is so much easier to be proactive than to repair after a crisis, because what happens if something goes wrong and then you have to fix it later down the line, it is a much more harder process. So being proactive in taking preventative action is the core theme I want to highlight here.
Yeah, completely agree. As much as it is a cultural shock, I think the structure brings a lot of preparedness with it, right? You are making sure that you're having everything in order and you have this process in place. So any kind of not so good thing happens, you're still ready, right? Because it's not a shocker for you. There's a routine, which I really appreciate now, as I said. But anyway, let's go from clinic muscles to home muscles, the never-ending story.
The home muscles, and there, you know what I remembered? Recently, I heard like someone say this: when you become an adult, these 3 amigos choose you, right? The 3 amigos are laundry, dishes, and trash. They will never leave you until your death. You have to do them every single day. So what I remember is back home, India law, a lot of us were, I think we can say, lovingly spoiled. We had that princess treatment, no idea about dishes, no idea about laundry, trash, ఏంటి ఎవరు చేస్తున్నారు, nothing. It's all like magic. You never know who does it, right?
Right. And then US says, surprise! It's you. It's you who's going to do all of this. I very distinctly remember, right, during my master's, the first thing after we got a room, one of my roommate who was a senior, she made us sit and she started distributing these chores. And we were like 4 or 5 people living in that apartment. It was okay, fine, okay. One day I'm going to do this, one day you're going to do the cooking, one day you're going to do the cleaning. It had a rhythm to it. It was still okay. It gave me a little cushion to get into it. But then once we got married, now the population reduced to 2, but the number of activities remained the same or more higher. So it's between me and my spouse, we had to start distributing these chores. And clearly the frequency shot up, and honestly, 80% of our arguments were due to these chores.
Shweta, I relate to it so much because I have been there. Like, I think almost all couples go through the same thing about their arguments being about chores. Kani, what helped us was creating this Excel sheet which had the list of all chores. And I have to give credit to my husband because he started it. And in that Excel sheet, we listed literally everything that keeps a house running, right? Cooking, cleaning, dishwasher, laundry, trash, taxes, errands, everything. And each line has an owner and a frequency. Because see, something like a dishwasher has to be done daily, but something like a laundry, probably weekly. And taxes, yearly. So here, that frequency is the sanity saver. And ultimately, that Excel sheet I helped us balance the load instead of pretending like all the tasks were equal. And what we also did was we updated the sheet when life changes. And we had a kid, and suddenly there's more things, right? You have to think about bottle washing, you have to think about daycare forms, you have to think about pediatrician visits. You also have to think about making sure your child is fed, making sure you have all of those lists ready. So for me, that Excel sheet has been a lifesaver, and I would recommend it to everyone.
I know, I know. I remember borrowing that whole spreadsheet idea from you. And what we did was we added to it a weekly 1 hour stand up. You know, it sounds very work type, but trust me, it made wonders, right? We would pick a day of the week, and that 1 hour, it would be phones down. We just sit, we revise what we have written, especially with ఇప్పుడు ఈ daily chores or weekly, I wouldn't say mundane, but same chores even those don't change, but then every week something new gets added, right? For example, now, right, we have Thanksgiving coming up, so we wanted to make a list of what we wanted to buy for Thanksgiving, or is a holiday coming up, who's going to do the holiday planning. So those non-regular tasks we streamline cheyadaniki, that 1 hour meeting really helped us. And I think that's something that I would always suggest my friends to do too. It also helps a conversation, right? Y'all are talking about things. It feels like y'all are doing a project together. So it builds that bond between you and your spouse.
Totally agree. And it's also about each person doing tasks that they are best suited. It's not about fairness per task. It's about overall fairness and load balancing. So not one person feels like they are literally running the household.
Yes, yes. ఇప్పుడు మనం మెడికల్ సిస్టమ్ అడ్రస్ చేసేసాం. హోమ్ ఇస్ హమ్మింగ్. Now let's go to our third box, the inbox that multiplies when you sleep.
Yes, we should definitely talk about work because no work ante I remember like just today I had 5 meeting invites that landed at the same time.
Ah, welcome to my world. So early in my career, right, I remember year-end review was coming up, and I used to really panic because I didn't remember what I did like 6, 7 months back. I would only have the memory of the last 2, 3 months, and last 2, 3 months, lo, how much will you remember, right? You just write that, and that wouldn't be enough for me. And then what I did was I started coming up with this weekly status note. It's nothing with a great structure. It's a simple bullet point list, but I use it as a shared note. So in Teams, if you go, you can have shared notes. I'm guessing Slack also has that, which is a persistent note. So what I do is I just, for myself and my PML sake, I just jot down. So I do it on Friday at noon. Before I head for lunch, I write down what happened that week. So that eventually becomes a memo of all things I've been doing over the last year, and that helps me tremendously. So that's one way I adulted at work. So try coming up with some kind of routine which helps you track your work, because at work, if you're not speaking for yourself and if you don't remember things you have done, trust me, nobody will. I definitely want our listeners to take a cue from it. The second thing that you mentioned, right, that you had like 5 meetings at the same time, that's pretty much my life for the last 2 years. So another ritual that I have started is every night before I go to bed, I try to look at my calendar and I try and pick which meetings are colliding needs to be prioritized based on my inputs or things I have to learn from the meeting. I start picking and choosing those, and I start declining the ones that I don't attend. So that way, whoever is the meeting organizer, they have an opportunity to call in or make sure that my second in line is available. I think these two things have helped me organize stuff and have also brought in that maturity in me on how to handle.
I totally relate, Shweta. And for me, not having a processes work is setting yourself up for failure. So the things I do to make sure my work goes, seamlessly is firstly, because I'm a product manager, I have so many meetings that I have to attend. So if I am organizing a meeting, it needs to have a clear agenda. Like, what are we trying to decide in this meeting? Who is the decider and who's being informed? And then you can automate what you can, but there are some manual follow-ups that I might need to do. So I capture them. That act of writing things down manually helps me remember it in my brain longer. The other thing I do at work that helps me is blocking time. I have a daily block to process all of these Slack pings. So the whole day I'm not just responding to pings. The other thing I do is focus blocks. That is when I'm just doing my deep work, no meetings, no notifications. I don't allow anything else to interrupt me during that time. So those are the two things I do in order for my work to be more streamlined and efficient and be the adult at work.
Yes, yes. And if your calendar looks like Tetris, remember you can still move the pieces. Decline with context, offer alternatives. Adulting at work is part prioritization and a part narration.
Okay, let's land this with some timely grown up deadlines.
Abba mali deadlines, inken deadlines, eh?
Good play, the open enrollment season is here, and many windows are from late October to mid November to like late December. So, this is what we do, right, for open enrollment. We sit down and we compare options across employers. What is the medical plan I have? What is the medical plan my husband's company offers? Dental, vision. Should we be taking HSA this year? Should we be taking FSA? What is the amount that is left over from previous year's HSA that is going to roll over? The first time when I did this, it was terrifying because నాకు అప్పుడు ఏమీ తెలియదు. I literally didn't know anything. Even things like what a deductible meant, right? In like the medical scenario. But you learn them over time, and slowly, year after year, you build a process. And building this process helped. So when I knew it was working, this year, we finished open enrollment in less than an hour. It was so easy. Only recently I learned that not everyone has a process. A friend recently told me, like, I was on both my medical plan and my husband's company's medical plan, essentially making things more complex for themselves.
I can totally see that happening, okay? For a very long time, I was completely oblivion to how this whole thing works because I would blindly rely on my husband, and his then employer had a very good medical plan, so my husband would take care of everything. So I didn't know what happens with open enrollment. I didn't know what insurance. Okay, I have an insurance card. I can go to this network of doctors. That's what I would care about. It's only after he moved to a different job, he was like, let's start comparing this. And that was the very first time I opened my open enrollment. I used to always just open it and decline everything. And that was my life for many years. So once we started doing this, we were also streamlining, like how you mentioned earlier, right? We would see what plans are good, which ones have better deductibles. But one other thing that we add to the list of questions is we also ask ourselves, are there any planned procedures we want to take this year? Because that guides whether we want to pick a higher premium, lower deductible plan or vice versa. One other thing I want our listeners to be aware is after I have started going into my enrollment portal, I realized that we have something called legal services. And legal services offer you, in some companies at least, they offer you subsidized plans to create will and trust. Anybody in the US who have kids, I totally urge you all to make sure that you go and create a will and trust for your kids. It's so, so, so important. You will not realize the importance of it until something happens. So don't wait till something bad to happen and then regret. But if you're doing an open enrollment, please consider this as a sign for you guys to go and check the legal services and start working on the will and trust for your kids.
Yeah, I think with that, we can all say that we've grown up and adulted enough. So
And
that's
that's
the
the
upgrade.
upgrade.
Perfect. So see you all next week then.
See you guys. Thanks. Thanks.